You want to win? Put Kyle Pitts in. Let him know, big dog.
I'll tell you what you didn't win. The hearts of America, the hearts of Falcons fans, the hearts of Kyle Pitts' mom. I'll tell you, you didn't win any of that. All you won was 2 losses. That's right. And I don't even know if that makes sense. You won losses, because that's all you've got to show for yourself, Arthur Smith. Free Kyle Pitts.
And he go off in week 3. We just gonna say, woo!
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, and leading off with an iconic promo from Lawrence Jackson and Matthew Berry. Matthew Berry with a well-earned day off today, but we have Lawrence Jackson here from Roto World. We have Pat Kerrane here from Roto World. I am Connor Rogers. Fellas, a lot to get through today, but no better way to kick off the show than right with that promo. Is Kyle Pitts finally freed?
I think so. We finally got to see him.
You willed it to existence.
Yes. Like Arthur Smith had to have seen that video because Kyle Pitts finally led the team in targets, in receptions, in yards, and the Falcons got their first victory. So, yes, we want some more. We want some more. We got to get a little more.
We do.
But we love that, though. We love it.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Matthew. I have a lot of Kyle Pitts teams that needed that help, and a 40% target share. I mean, if we get the Falcons throwing a little bit more with this kind of usage, wheels up.
Yeah, Arthur Smith saying that they weren't trying to win fantasy football. They were trying to win real games. Turns out they go hand in hand. If you feed Kyle Pitts, you get your first win of the season. So huge news, and might just been an appetizer. We still need him to get into the end zone consistently. I think we will get there. But we are going to also get to some of the biggest injury updates around the league, including DeAndre Swift, Dalvin Cook, and David Montgomery. But before we get to that, fellas, the Sunday Scaries, they start to kick in the evening. They carry over into Monday morning, and we have to kick off with a big-name dud, and that is Joe Mixon with 6.8 fantasy points in a game where the Bengals offense got going in the right direction against the New York Jets. They were up 2 scores pretty much the entire second half, but a letdown for Mixon.
Yeah, in a game like that where everybody's getting a little bit of piece of the pie, you want to see the running back, get some piece of that pie. But instead, it was the backup running back, Samaje Perine. He vultured away the touchdown. Mixon was not efficient on his runs, but he hasn't been in this season up until this point. So there should be some concern. The good thing about it is he should still get that volume. But we also had to worry about why he left the game late in the third quarter. So we got that hanging over our head as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is concerning because this is the version of the Bengals that we've been waiting to see. They were aggressive through the air. They were able to hit big plays downfield. Joe Burrow was finally clicking with his receivers, and that was part of the allure of Mixon in drafts, is that he's going to be part of this explosive Bengals attack. He's going to be able to get in the end zone. But he's been so inefficient this year, only 2 yards per carry in this game. I guess one silver lining here, he did have 7 targets, and that's been a very bullish part of his fantasy profile this year. More than we thought. He's been involved in the receiving game. So that at least a positive sign.
Yeah, we saw it in a winning effort. Burrow willing to spread the ball around to all 3 of the wide receivers. And it's not that it phased Mixon out. They still gave him the ball, but just not a huge production day. Speaking of that, in a wild win for the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson under 5 fantasy points, a rare occurrence, but this is back-to-back weeks now. Justin Jefferson has been limited. And let's hear from him on the double teams that he is now seeing from the opposition.
Yes, you double and even triple teamed on some plays all day. How do you navigate that? In the end, it works out and other guys get opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. It's frustrating for sure. But, I asked for it. Just playing the way I've been playing, just being the type of player that I am. Those double teams and triple teams are going to come. But that's the luxury of having Adam and KJ on the other side. Even J. Reg over here. So, our receiver core is deep. Even when they want to double team me, I know somebody's going to be open. So that's the luxury of it.
Jefferson clearly happy with the win for the Vikings. The good news, fellas, and no surprise, he played 100% of the offensive snaps. Justin Jefferson is the offense with or without the ball in Minnesota. The bad news is back-to-back weeks with less than 50 receiving yards, 0 touchdowns, a rare occurrence since he's been in the league. Lawrence, where's your, I don't want to call it panic meter at, but concern level with Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, not too concerned at this point. They wanted to get the win. They needed to get the win, and they got that. The other receivers were able to be productive. So 2 weeks in a row, it's okay. They ran the ball well. That helped them get the win. And I like Justin Jefferson's answer. He said his answer. He said, I'm the big dog. I know these double and triple teams is going to come, and I'm ready for it. So he will bounce back, and I like that he threw Jalen Reagor name in there too.
Yeah, I mean, even for really good receivers, elite receivers, you're going to see some inconsistent production. One thing to note here is that Justin Jefferson did draw a defensive pass interference in the end zone. He also, I think, is correct that he's drawing a ton of coverage, and it is opening up other guys in the offense. KJ Osborne was able to hit consecutive 28-yard receptions, one for the game-winning touchdown. So seeing that, maybe a defense is going forward, they devote a little bit less attention to Jefferson, and he can feast even if he's getting double and triple teams because he's that good.
Yeah, I agree. And with Kevin O'Connell calling the shots in Minnesota, I think you have a little belief that they'll find creative ways to get Jefferson the ball, whether it's flexed inside in the slot or outside. Kirk Cousins needs Justin Jefferson to be himself. All right, moving on, Tyreek Hill coming off a monster week 2. Not even comes back down to earth in week 3, but 5.3 fantasy points in PPR format. Still 22% target share in week 3. But the production just wasn't there, and a shocking win for the Dolphins where it seemed like a lot of odd factors were in play in that Miami Heat.
Yeah. The biggest odd factor is the fact that the Dolphins only ran 39 plays, right? So this is why
Bills had the ball the whole game.
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and this is why you won't worry about Tyreek Hill either. It was just that type of game. The Miami defense stepped up, whereas to week 2, their offense stepped up. Jalen Waddle caught the big pass that pushed him over 100 yards. So even Tyreek Hill mentioned it in the interview. He was like, 3 targets, 3 catches, just whatever. We'll bounce back. And he said he owes Eli Apple on Thursday, so we got to be ready for that too.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, he only had 4 targets in this game. That was still good for a 22% target share because, the Dolphins only threw 18 times from Tua. Teddy Bridgewater also had 2 attempts. So, yeah, just no volume here. I don't think there's anything to be concerned about.
I like that point from both of you. It's not just that his targets were down, and they were. It's the fact that the targets around the entire offense were down. So Tyreek Hill was just a part of that in a really, really strange game where the Bills almost had 500 yards of offense and still lost. All right, looking at the Raiders, man, they are the only 0-3 team in football right now. Darren Waller, a part of that suffering right now, only 5.2 fantasy points in week 3. He's now played under 75% of the offensive snaps in consecutive weeks, fellas. Is there some concern here with Waller's usage?
Yeah, so you don't love that, especially when you're an elite tight end. If he would have had like some bad stats here or there, but he was playing 90% of the snaps, that's cool. We could deal with that. But the under 75% for a top-tier tight end, you kind of worry about that, and you think, well, is this going to be the type of offense where it's going to be a Hunter Renfrow week and then a Darren Waller week? From Waller, you want that consistently. You're still obviously going to start him, but just be wary of that.
Yeah, I think this is concerning. Tight end is so tough because, it's not like wide receiver where if you're starting wide receiver, you're basically going to be out there pretty much the whole time. You're going to have a chance to earn targets. At tight end, sometimes the guys aren't getting on the field as much as we like. It's more similar to running back in some ways. And in this game, you had Foster Moreau filling in a lot for Darren Waller, running some of those slot routes.
Where they had to throw in this game.
Yeah. This is a situation where you would have expected Darren Waller to step up and have a good game. You had a career day from Mac Hollins, so to not have Darren Waller even be on the field for a full-time role here is definitely concerning because this is a new coaching staff. They may be signaling what they plan to be doing going forward.
Yeah, the Raiders defense allowing the Titans to basically score at will on those first couple of possessions. This is a game where you really think you're firing up Darren Waller for a big target day that just didn't lead to a lot of production. All right, keeping the concern factor going. Guys, this one when we came out of Sunday was my biggest one because if you look at the box score, it's somehow gone from bad to even worse in week 3 for DJ Moore on the Panthers. Let's call it what it is. He's not had more than 3 receptions in a game this season, 2.5 points in week 3. This is a surefire 1,000-plus yard receiver that can't get anything going right now, clearly because of the quarterback situation in Carolina.
Right, and we always talk about DJ Moore being consistent with his 4 touchdowns every year, right? This year, every game, he done had 6 targets. Those are the type of targets you like to see from your number 2 or your number 3 passing option. This is scary. If this happened again, we might have to come to the show next time dressed in all black. Because if Baker Mayfield is completing less than 50% of his passes on the daily, which is what he did, you do not love that for your top receiver that you probably drafted in the 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah, if we were redrafting today, does DJ Moore go in the single-digit rounds?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
That's how bad the offense looks.
It's been horrible. Baker Mayfield ranks 28th among quarterbacks in EPA per play. Pretty strong efficiency metric that just shows you when you're ranked behind Joe Flacco, that's not good for the offense. For DJ Moore especially, I think Christian McCaffrey, who has had at least back-to-back 100-yard days on the ground, can get there, and hopefully we'll see some more work through the passing game. But this is not a passing offense that we want pieces of.
And he's out there, played 60 of 61 offensive snaps. Obviously, a receiver making $20 million a year with the production he's had, that's going to be the case. But no production so far this season. All right, Alvin Kamara, he's been dealing with some injuries this season. The Saints offense did not have a fun day once again, besides Cris Olave. Kamara played in less than 70% of the snaps week 3. It is clear that they are kind of watching his work total here with him dealing with some rep management on the injury front. Lawrence, what are we thinking with Kamara right now? This has been one of the more consistent running backs in fantasy because of the pass catching, and now the work total is just not there.
Yeah, this is another one. You could be concerned for him, not as much as Joe Mixon, but like you said, he's coming off the injury with the ribs. They're trying to monitor what they got going on, and the whole offense just didn't look good, So I give Kamara a little bit more time to get right, and we'll see what it is. Because, especially where you drafted him, hell, you gotta have some faith. You got to.
Even if it's a prayer. What do you think, Pat?
7 targets in this game, so that I think is going to be the key here, because his rushing efficiency fell off last year. He got a lot more work as a rusher last year. That's not really what we want. The 15 carries here, great. Let's get 7 targets. Let's get him, producing more as the receiver, which is what has led to him being a fantasy superstar. And maybe with these wide receiver injuries, we do get that a little bit more going forward.
All right, we are back on the Allen Robinson roller coaster this week again. Week 1, the man was missing. Week 2, we had the bounce back. Week 3, back under 5 points, wide receiver 73. Dating back to last season, fellas, Robinson is averaging 7.3 points in PPR format now over the last 15 games. When you put it in that perspective, I think the expectations are going to be very, very underwhelming now with Robinson's stat line.
Yeah, we need to bring out the cold emoji for that one right there, because it's definitely going to be a roller coaster, and I feel like that's just how it's going to be. On a day where Cooper Kupp wasn't crazy, where he didn't go off in the receiving game, you think okay, Allen Robinson, he going to do something. Nah, everybody else, here, Cooper Kupp run the ball. This got me feeling like Odell got a chance to come back now. You know what I'm saying?
Be a factor,
yeah, man. So he's not you got to think about benching him sometimes now. Coming into the season, you were feeling like he could be a wide receiver 2. He's nothing close to that right now. It's scary to have him in there in the lineup right now.
He does have a role in the red zone, but he is very touchdown dependent. And, I think you can think of him as kind of a poor man's Adam Thielen. I think you can think of him as sort of almost like a tight end type of play where you're really hoping that he scores a touchdown, and he is going to get some targets in that area, but just nothing outside of that right now.
Do you guys think he's moved into almost desperation flex territory at this point, or do you trust him a little more?
Because if I'm feeling like you got to think about benching him, that's a desperation flex. You know what I'm saying? It's he's good. Like you said, when you get in the red zone, there's a chance. They love to throw in the red zone, but it's you going to be sweating that out all game? I'm good, baby.
Plus, Cooper Kupp's there too. They're going to be looking for him in the red zone, so it's not even like there's that much touchdown upside. I do think he's a desperation flex.
All right, last one on our duds list for today. Kyler Murray, no touchdowns scored passing or throwing in Week 3 against those Rams. He's now had less than 25 fantasy points in 8 of his last 10 games. So a guy that was kind of viewed in a lot of drafts as a potential superstar because of the hot start last season. I wouldn't say he's falling off a cliff, but he's not even close to that upper tier quarterbacks. Yeah,
you definitely expected him to be with the Jalen Hurts and Lamars and Mahomes and Herberts and all those guys, but they're just not scoring any points. And when I'm watching this offense play every week, I'm thinking I bet they can't wait to have DeAndre Hopkins back. I feel like that's what you need to just get it going. Hollywood Brown had himself a day, his best day as a Cardinal so far. But it's you need that true alpha number 1 receiver to really get going. But hopefully he could get it going sooner than that, because Hopkins still out for a little bit.
Yeah, Kyler Murray 2 spots behind Carson Wentz in EPA per play, 2 spots ahead of Mitch Trubisky. not where we
It's a
wanted.
weird range for Kyler Murray to be in right now.
If you mention Mitchell Trubisky,
We got a problem.
we got to think about
We
something.
do.
We're hitting the code red
We gotta
button.
think
We're
about
hitting the code red button.
We still
yeah.
have elite upside with the rushing as we saw last week, so no need to panic here. But I think please keep forcing targets to Marquise Brown for as long as Hopkins is out, because that at least does create some passing production for fantasy purposes.
He had him on a deep ball too. They didn't connect, so that was some points missed there too.
And the Greg Dortch show of 2022 rolls on, fellas. Don't sleep on Dortch. All right, let's get into the latest on the injury front right now. DeAndre Swift officially has a shoulder sprain that won't require surgery, but he could miss some time, as you see right here in the loss against the Vikings. Not missing, not having to deal with surgery is a really good outlook for the long term, fellas. But the bottom line is, it's clear he's probably going to miss a few games dealing with this.
Yeah, and that's tough. And what's also tough is it's like the norm and the narrative of what we come to expect from DeAndre Swift, because we know when he's on the field, he's one of the best.
Yeah.
And it only heightens Jamal Williams' value now. I don't think he's on a lot of waivers, but if he is in your league, you better go get him.
Yeah.
But this, even like I said, this heightens his value. So, hell, he looked like a running back one yesterday with DeAndre Swift playing. So, Jamal Williams got to be a top 15 player. So, with how that Lions offense is playing, you got to love that. And if you have Swift, you just got to hope it's, closer to 2 to 3 games than 4 to 6.
Yeah, Pat, Lawrence hinted at it. I mean, the Lions' offensive line is great. They have a consistent rushing attack. Now you take Swift out of the equation. Is Jamal Williams essentially a real RB1 now to fire up?
I think low-end RB1, definitely high-end RB2. I mean, he already had the short yardage role, and so now he's going to get more of the receiving work. DeAndre Swift's role was already being managed, so I do think that what Williams is going to get on top of this, maybe it's not going to be like massive, because Craig Reynolds will see work as well.
Yeah.
But to get the work at the goal line, which he definitely has locked down, plus more receiving work, I mean, he's a very valuable fantasy running back right now.
All right, moving over to the Bears, who they are just focused in on their rushing attack. It feels like Justin Fields barely gets to throw the ball. Good news for the Bears backfield, although some bad news. David Montgomery comes out of the game. They're calling it a lower body injury. He's expected to be day-to-day, so we will see David Montgomery back soon. But, fellas, the reality is at this point, when Khalil Herbert gets the ball, good things happen. 22 touches, 169 yards, and the touchdown. Let's hear from Herbert on his big day and making most of some of those opportunities he's getting.
How were you feeling as the carries piled up and you saw that yardage pile up and you knew you were being effective?
Really just you get in a rhythm, I was getting in a rhythm, and, O-line did a great job of opening up things for me, allowing me to get in that rhythm. But once you get in the rhythm, you start feeling things, you start feeling hot, you're able to just do stuff that, you're able to do.
Getting in that rhythm out there, you've been able to come in, cold at times throughout your game and make these big sustained plays. What's the key for that in your mind of being able to do that?
Really just making the most of my opportunities. I come in with that mindset every week. Whether it's 1 carry, 20 carries, just try and make the most of that and make a play with what I get.
Lawrence, is Herbert going to be the hottest name on the waiver wire this week, if he's even available in your league at this point?
100%. You don't just go. It'd have been different if he went for 90 yards and a touchdown. This man went for 157 on him. So if he's probably going to be the top waiver wire priority. And like you said before, every time he's gotten a shot, he has delivered. And with the way that the Bears are not throwing the football, this is going to be all him. Like, they're going, and even if the Bears get behind, he'll be in the game on pass situations, and you gotta love that. If you're sitting on Khalil Herbert, you looking pretty good right now.
Absolutely.
You are. I mean, he had 7.9 yards per carry. Justin Fields had 6.2 yards per attempt. I mean, he was the offense. It really is. And the Bears, this is the way they want to play. They are the lowest team in the league in pass rate over expected. If you look at kind of where teams are expected to pass based on game situation, down distance, they are running the ball. This is philosophical. They've been extremely run heavy in all 3 of their games. Justin Fields, by the way, last in the league in EPA per play. So they're trying to protect and hide Fields. And I think if we have any missed time from David Montgomery, we're going to see big workloads from Khalil Herbert.
All right, another big injury in the backfield for the Vikings. Dalvin Cook goes down with a shoulder injury. We don't have the latest exactly of what the timetable is, but it's business as always for Alexander Mattison. 8 touches, 44 yards, a touchdown in relief. I mean, we've talked about this for years now. It feels like when Cook inevitably misses a little bit of time each year, Mattison plays extremely effective in his role.
Yeah, it's like RB1 type stuff too. You know, he did it immediately as soon as after Dalvin Cook was on his way to a top day as well. But they did say that he'll try to put the harness on the shoulder, Dalvin Cook. They'll pop that thing in. He'll be ready to go. We'll see. Dalvin Cook and that shoulder been weird for the last couple years. Like he ran up last year against the Steelers. He had 200 yards in a game with the messed up shoulder. So he could be great with it or he could be out the game with it. But if he's playing, you got to fire him up. If he's not, you got to fire Alexander Mattison.
Yeah, it's a pain tolerance issue at this point for Cook. But when you look at Mattison specifically, I mean, he's very trustworthy at this point when he gets that chance.
Yeah, I think, there's already been Pro Football Talk reported that we were likely to see Dalvin Cook play in London. But I think, look, I mean, if he plays, you still want to try to trade for Alexander Mattison after this game because, Lawrence, you mentioned the shoulder's been a recurring issue here. Could be something that pops up later in the season, and this game was confirmation that if Cook misses time, Mattison is going to have that super valuable role that he did in the Mike Zimmer offense.
All right, last one on our injury list is not a running back for once, but Mac Jones. Obviously a bit of a thriller, Baltimore against the Patriots yesterday. It did come down to the wire. Baltimore closed it out in emphatic fashion at the end. But the big news was in the final 2 minutes, Mac Jones leaves with that ankle injury. It is a high ankle sprain, and what we've seen of high ankle sprains for quarterbacks, we'll see how he manages it, but this is something that can linger throughout the entire season. There has to be a little concern for Mac Jones, not just the injury, but the New England offense has been very up and down with this new staff.
Yeah, like you said, up and down is probably being nice.
Very polite.
Mac Jones had a couple good drives there, but ultimately throwing 3 picks, that ain't going to get it done when old L-Jack is on the other side. But for this Patriots offense that was doing the opposite of humming, it could get even worse now that you got, old boy, what's his name, Brian Hoyer. He going to come in now, and it's just – I mean, the good thing is you got Devontae Parker had a career high. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. But now you know that Mac Jones will miss some type of time now, probably more than a little, and that's just not good overall for the Patriots and their hopes as a team going forward.
Pat, do you think this makes them lean on the backfield even more? We saw Ramondre Stevenson obviously have a really big day.
I think it does, and Ramondre Stevenson, he had 5 targets in this game, so maybe we see some more short, dump down, check down type of stuff that he would really benefit from in particular.
He was balling.
All right, we're going to take a break. We got through the duds. We got through the injuries. The bad vibes are over. When we're back, we're looking for winners. We're going through the Weekend Warriors. Be sure to check out our new Sunday show, Fantasy Football Pregame at 11 a.m. live on Peacock. It's a one-stop shop for your NFL fantasy and betting needs. Get your start, sit questions answered using the hashtag FFPregame. All right, fellas, Weekend Warriors time. Let's talk about the guys that actually had a big Sunday, and who better to start with than DeVonta Smith, who made it pretty clear. Let's hear what DeVonta had to say after the game.
As a receiver, that's what it comes down to, 50-50 balls, you got to win it. I mean, the trust that Jalen has and all the receivers, it's our ball, nobody's ball. So just being there with him, just being able to make sure that if we don't come down with it, nobody comes down with it.
DeVonta, what's your mindset, man, when you see the ball coming your way and you know it's going to be like a 50-50 type
my
ball?
Ball or nobody's.
It's my ball or nobody's, DeVonta Smith said, and that lives up as he's out-targeted A.J. Brown over the last 2 games after the goose egg week 1. 31 fantasy points in week 3. Lawrence, some big-time bounce back these last 2 weeks after the disappointing week 1 for DeVonta.
Again, another receiver where I like his answer. He just chilling. He ain't yelling or nothing. He says, it's my ball, nobody ball. Remember, this is the Heisman Trophy winner at wide receiver, and I'm loving the fact that he's emerged now with Jalen Hurts, because that's only going to make this offense overall even better. When you got 2 guys that you had to worry about, I think he's a strong flex play with how Jalen Hurts is doing in the passing games, back-to-back 300-yard passing days. So let's keep riding with it.
This is a pass-first Eagles team. Once you account for game situation, they're actually passing more than you would expect at a decent rate. They're kind of where the Chargers and the Packers were last year. So we thought this might be like a balanced team. We were worried it might be a run-heavy team entering the year. This is like best case scenario for the Eagles. They're actually a pass-first team. They can support 2 receivers, and we have had DeVonta Smith out-target A.J. Brown over the last 2 games, but I wouldn't be freaking out here. If you have A.J. Brown, he's going to get his too. It's just that this is a really exciting offense that can support multiple weapons.
Yeah, everybody's getting theirs in that trio. We know what Jalen's done, obviously right in the thick of the MVP race right now. Now DeVonta and A.J. Brown consistently on pace for huge years. We touched on this in segment 1, Ramondre Stevenson, somebody that there were big expectations for this year, especially in the pass game role when you hear Belichick talk about him. Finished as RB7 in Week 3 with over 20 fantasy points. He led the Patriots running backs in carries, rush yards, receptions, and receiving yards. Lawrence, you touched on it. Brian Hoyer has to play. This might lean back to the backfield a little bit more.
Right, and this is why you got to feel even better about Ramondre Stevenson now, and you still don't count out Damian Harris because these are your 2 best players on offense now. Now, what happened against the Ravens for Stevenson, we love that. In that type of game, it was only going to be Ramondre Stevenson. They gave him the shot. He showed up. Again, another strong flex play there for you.
Patty outsnapped Damian Harris 41-25. So this is clearly his role is starting to sway all the way towards him a little bit.
Yeah, it's exciting. You know, he can be that guy who's the passing down back, but then he's a big back, so he can actually score at the goal line. Damian Harris obviously very good at the goal line himself and a better breakaway runner. So both these guys have some clear strengths, but Stevenson, I think, would be very capable as the lead back here and a big-time fantasy asset in that role.
Sticking with the New England offense, and brace yourself. Yes, DeVonta Parker with, Lawrence said it, his best career game, essentially. Finished as wide receiver 10, 20.6 fantasy points in Week 3. Guys, he wasn't really a factor Week 1 and 2, and then he comes out of nowhere and has this kind of game with Mac Jones.
First off, congratulations to DeVonta Parker for having a career day as far as yards is concerned. How do I feel about this going forward? Especially
Fool's gold?
Yeah, especially with Mac Jones out now. Again, they're going to really have to lean on these bats. Now, DeVonta Parker is a beast when it kind of contested catches. Almost nobody better. But how is this offense going to look now when they was just starting to try to get it going? Also, I would worry more about what's up with that Baltimore secondary because it's 2 weeks in a row. They getting lit up. Yep. You know, to give DeVonta Parker his career day, they caught the interceptions, but we got to figure out what's going on that side too.
I love that point. Yeah, the Ravens secondary has been one to target. I think it's going to be one to target this year. It certainly was at the end of last year, and we're seeing that repeat. And it is nice here to see with Jacoby Myers out that Parker can step up. But I do wonder, once Myers gets back, we got quarterback issues here. I do think it's probably fool's gold.
All right, this one will probably be a trivia question at some point in the very distant future. Mac Hollins finished as wide receiver 2 in Week 3. I don't think anybody projected that. He had 30 fantasy points. He out-targeted Devontae Adams 9-8. We talked about the Raiders' offense. It's a little difficult to figure out now. Good for Mac Hollins, but, man, this makes things that much more confusing.
Hey, you know the song, Return of the Mac. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think he's going to be returning once Hunter Renfrow returns because he is a target monster in himself, and he sat out with the concussion. Again, we didn't have much. We didn't get much from Darren Waller. We hope to. You kind of just see this as a game like, hey, he had his day. Devontae Adams, he'll get more targets. Even though the past 2 games, Devontae Adams been kind of low. He saved us with the touchdown, but it was definitely Mac Hollins' day. So to him, too, congratulations, Mac Hollins.
We knew this was going to be kind of like a low-volume type of environment with the Titans, wanted to be run heavy and everything. And, sometimes targets condense to unexpected guys. I wouldn't be worried here about Devontae Adams.
All right, James Robinson having a monster day. It's been really an impressive year for James Robinson when you consider what he's coming back from and the timeline that he's doing with that torn Achilles. Finished as RB6, over 20 points. Guys, here's what jumped out to me out of the gate. James Robinson ran more routes than Travis Etienne yesterday, 20-14. What do we do with that?
What you do with that is you say, look, James Robinson, I got you in double-digit rounds, and you're an RB2, and I love you. You beat the whole week.
You win leagues.
Yeah, he beat the whole they can't come back from the Achilles tear myth, and I love it. I'm loving what he's doing, and I just keep it going, man, because he looking explosive. He outran the Chargers defense for 50 yards. The 37-yard run he had in week 2, they said, oh, that was just one run. Well, he did it again.
Yeah, short yardage carry that he takes the house. That's pretty nice.
4th and 1.
Yeah, 4th and 1. That's the best way to convert a 4th and 1 score.
Man, outsnapped and outcarried ETN in week 3. And fellas, I mean, and we're going to keep this going right now. Jacksonville offense. We can say it together. Jacksonville offense is something to be excited about right now in that blowout win against the Chargers, and that starts with Trevor Lawrence, who finished as a top 5 quarterback in fantasy this week. He targeted 8 different pass catchers in week 3, his first 25-plus point fantasy performance in his career. Trevor Lawrence could be one of those bargain quarterbacks in a year where it doesn't look like there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, this weekend you had to feel better coming in with guys like him and Jared Goff and Cousins over at Tom Brady.
Yeah.
But you love to see this side of the young quarterbacks spreading the ball around. He not fixated on Christian Kirk, and he's running this offense how it's supposed to be run. They're looking good. Hell, they the best team in the division right now. They dog walked the Chargers yesterday, and so like I'm like, you better put your ticket in now. It's probably too late. It's too late to get the best money. But if you just want to, if you want to be a bandwagon better, go and get in on that.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence 5th in the league in EPA per play. He's 2nd in completion percentage over expected, which measures accuracy. He is playing extremely well, and I do think we can buy into this Jacksonville offense.
I think what's sustainable in my eyes is that an adult is in the room and Doug Peterson there now, right? Where it matters a lot. We've seen Doug obviously have successful runs, specifically offensively, even with limitations at quarterback with young quarterbacks, and the fact, and Lawrence, you kind of hinted at this, Zay Jones involved, Christian Kirk involved, James Robinson involved. There's a lot of different players impacting their point total right now.
And you don't got to worry about their coach being in the club, you know what I'm saying?
No, it's the club that he owns.
Yeah.
Not good. All right, keeping it moving here. Chase Edmonds with a bounce-back week, RB11, 15.7 fantasy points in week 3. I mean, the big one here for me is he saw all 5 goal line snaps in week 3. So Chase Edmonds getting the goal line work in a game for Miami where they didn't throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, so what this game left me feeling like, it left me feeling kind of confused, especially like you said, he had all the goal line touches and he did what he was supposed to do with them. But in week 2, it was the Raheem Mostert show, and that was really the first time they looked good running the ball so far. But week 3 comes along, and it's Chase Edmonds' turn. I felt good about Chase Edmonds coming into the season. I got a little cold on him early, but now he's starting to rev up again, so I feel good about him where I usually would play him in a flex spot. But you may be dealing with a situation where it may be an Edmonds week and it may be a Raheem Mostert week. But the good thing is it's an explosive offense, so that's always good.
Yeah, Andrew Hawkins was talking about Mike McDaniel and his philosophy last week and saying, he kind of takes a look at what you're not supposed to do and kind of the conventional wisdom and then goes against that. And there's probably no bigger conventional wisdom than don't give Chase Edmonds goal line carries, and he's actually doing it. So, I mean, with goal line carries, he's got a receiving back profile as well. It's actually pretty interesting as part of this explosive offense.
Yeah, McDaniel coming from that 49ers tree all the way down the Gary Kubiak line of the coaching tree. So their running back situation is going to be confusing at best at times. So with that being said, Raheem Mostert on the field, he split third down snaps with Chase Edmonds. They each had 3. Is there any value still left in Raheem Mostert?
Oh, yeah, certainly. It's just we was going to be asking that question about Chase Edmonds soon, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like they just kind of go with the hot hand. You don't love to hear that if you have either one of these guys. You definitely don't love to hear it if you drafted Edmonds because you drafted him at a much higher price. If you got Mostert, you're like, I took him in the 13th round anyway, but it could be a lot of back and forth going on here.
Yeah, and Mostert's a big play guy, so I do think you can kind of use him as a fill-in running back 2 type of play if you need to.
All right, staying with the backfield here, the hype train man of the summer, Dameon Pierce for the Texans, finished as a top 10 back this week, over 18 points. Played majority of the early down and short yardage snaps. listen, Rex Burkhead is still kind of a thorn in the side right now for that pass-catching role, but Pierce is looking like the guy everybody got really excited about over the summer.
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually wrote about Dameon Pierce this past week in my optimal flex plays as playing, because in this type of game, it was going to be lower scoring. It was going to be run-oriented on both sides. Dameon Pierce claimed the early down role in week 2. Even if he wasn't going to get targets, he was going to get all those carries, and he did just that. So I would say, play the matchups with Dameon Pierce. Look who else you got on your roster and just play the matchups. The Bears was a good matchup. He exploited it.
Yeah, a great matchup, because the Texans are not going to be in a ton of situations where they're able to just run the ball and get away with that. I would also note he had 2 fumbles in this game. After the second one, it looked like Rex Burkhead was actually playing over him. Now, maybe that doesn't carry into next week, but I would be looking around and seeing if this game has restored some of the excitement that was around Dameon Pierce headed into the season. Maybe you can trade him.
Yeah,
I think it's
good
probably
idea.
a good week to shop.
All right, in a bizarro game down in Miami for the Bills offense, Stephon Diggs was dealing with some cramps. There's a lot of odd heat-related injuries in this one. And it was Motor Singletary that stepped up. Over 24 points in Week 3, 19.4% target share in Week 3. That's the 4th highest mark in his career. When things get rough or things get complicated at the receiver position, Josh Allen will lean on Motor when he needs to.
Yeah, 100%. And you notice Devin Singletary nor James Cook suffer from them cramps. You know why? They South Florida boys. They are about that action.
They'll play out in a hoodie out there.
Right, they about that action out there. So luckily they had them. Now, Devin Singletary has been the preferred running back for the Bills from week 1 till now. And after this game, it's only going to continue to be that way. James Cook is getting a little more run, as he should. You saw Zach Moss get in there and have a long run. But I think, like you say, he's the one they're going to depend upon now. He's the one with the experience, and he shows up and he makes plays consistently.
11 targets here for Singletary. That tied Stephon Diggs for the team high. 19% target share, 4th highest of his career. I do think that, this is going to be tough to count on for Singletary, because they specifically drafted James Cook to be a receiving down back. They tried to sign J.D. McKissick. They have other plans in the works here. I think, later in the season, some of this would go to James Cook. So I would be a little bit careful about buying into this completely.
All right, closing out with the rookie wide receiver Chris Olave. Last week we talked about him having over 300 air yards, and Jameis said, I'm going to keep looking for him down the field. So you could see some of these convert to real yards. They did this week, guys. Olave finishes as wide receiver 6. He's seen a 32% plus target share in consecutive weeks. With all the injuries the Saints have dealt with at the skill spots, Jameis is now leaning on the rookie already in the first month of the season.
Yeah, this is interesting. And Pat, back in the summer when we did our previews, I actually said Chris Olave could potentially lead this team in touchdowns just because of the deep, deep ball. I'm not a big air yards guy.
Yep.
I like to see those air yards
Real
converted.
yards?
I like them real yards, and he got that. Now, the injuries to Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry, they say those are not serious. So we got to keep a lookout on that. So, we can't expect this every single game. He's going to get them air yards, though. If you like that, he'll get them. Jarvis Landry had a great week 1. So I feel like those guys will kind of switch off here and there. But Chris Olave, him performing, is definitely what the Saints need right now.
Yeah, I think, the air yards, they are important, especially if you're drawing targets consistently. And he had 13 targets in this game. To be able to consistently draw downfield targets, it's going to lead to a lot of upside week to week. If both these guys are kind of banged up, I think this looks fairly real to me. This is a potential breakout here from Chris Olave.
One last note on Olave. Less than 20 wide receivers this year have at least a 26% target share. He's one of them. That's impressive for a rookie, even for a first-rounder.
Rookie receivers is balling right now.
They're having all of them across the board are off to a really hot start. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll go through the most noteworthy storylines out of Sunday with Roto Pat, who will be joining us in just a minute. For analysis of every game on Sunday's slate, make sure to listen to the Roto World Football Show Monday morning. Pat is joined by members of our Roto World staff to discuss team trends, possible breakout players, and all the other fantasy-relevant news you'll need to get an advantage in your league. Check it out tomorrow morning, wherever you download and subscribe to your podcast. And with that, we welcome in Roto Pat joins the show. We are going to have a lot of fun with this one. Pat, we started segment 1 talking about DeAndre Swift's injury. Now we kind of want to lean on the Jamal Williams impact of that over the last 2 weeks. He's out-touched Swift 35-17 in what's been an impressive Lions ground attack. How high are you on Jamal Williams now going forward with the Swift injury?
I'm never really that high on Jamal Williams. He is Jamal Williams. And just DeAndre Swift, what a frustrating thing this has been because, it's not necessarily the vultures. That was baked in. It's not necessarily even like the raw carries. It was the injuries and kind of playing into another coaching staff's belief that he can't hold up under these big workloads. And, hopefully he doesn't miss any time. We know that he might miss some time. But when he comes back, is it going to possibly be to that same role we saw in week 1 where it kind of seemed like he was living up, to his Austin Ekeler destiny? Like, this was a guy primed for like an Austin Ekeler type season. He's a big play threat who was going to get high value touches. He would seed some goal line carries, maybe a little more than Austin Ekeler, but also, a little bit bigger big play threat than Austin Ekeler. So it's kind of went from looking like maybe the best case scenario, DeAndre Swift season in week 1, to now the worst case again, where he's playing in to the worst perceptions of his game. And, maybe it's justified. Maybe he just really can't hold up under these kind of workloads. And DeAndre, you can maybe play through a lower body injury. You can maybe play through an upper body injury. Having both at the same time, not really recommended.
Body cast.
Yeah, but
now, Pat, are you a doctor?
Yeah, I am.
You gotta be. There's a lot of doctors on Twitter now.
And if Swift does miss week 4, the way I view Jamal Williams is kind of like a lower upside Jeff Wilson. This run game isn't as well designed as the 49ers. He isn't as an explosive of a player as Jeff Wilson at this point. Jamal Williams it's good in that he's trusted in all 3 downs, but he was a guy who kind of looked like he was running out of gas last year. He's looked a little springier this year, but not at all like he's not going to be plug and play RB2. Might be a little bit beyond what is reasonable, but he'll probably slide into like that RB 22 to 28 range.
Yeah, I think with the Swift stuff, you talk about the vultures, but it's not just that, Jamal Williams is getting some of it. He's getting all of it. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a run down to the 2, a yards after catch run down to the 2, and it was kind of a hurry-up situation, and they took Swift off the field, bring in Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams had 2 4th and shorts before Swift was injured. So kind of all of it funneling to Williams has me a bit concerned.
Yeah, Caffeine Campbell loves himself some Jamal Williams at the goal line. All right, fellas, moving on more concern level for Austin Ekeler right now. 4 carries for 5 yards in week 3. He has 80 rushing yards on the season on 32 attempts. Pat, is there a panic level with Ekeler, or is his receiving production just always outweigh this so much that you're not too worried?
I did say coming into week 3 that it might be panic mode if he had another down game, and then he had another down game. But I'm going to claim yet again that it's not panic mode because the usage was honestly fine. He played almost 60% of the snaps. He dominated snaps on 3rd and 4th down. I think he handled 2 of the 4 touches inside the 10-yard line. So still nothing really that concerning in the underlying usage. Sony Michel and Josh Kelly aren't exactly applying pressure either. And now a Chargers team, they're 1-2, 2 really tough losses back to back. They're kind of in like circle the wagons mode. How do you circle the wagons? You give the ball to your best player. And it just feels more like a slump than like a concern. But I would understand if people are getting a little nervous because that was, especially with the quarterback injured in week 3 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, you expected an even bigger Ekeler workload. You expected fantasy points, and it didn't happen. But Lawrence, are you concerned? Should I be just starting to panic? Should I be crying live on air right now?
I'm surprised you not crying yet. This guy got 32 carries for 80 yards. Like we know he gonna get the receptions, but you got to be able to run it just a little bit. Like that is 32 carries for 80 yards. I mean, no. While Sony
It's a
Michelle,
slump. I'll admit that it's a slump.
while Sony Michelle is not running away with the position, obviously. I mean, 5 carries for 22 yards sound like Hall of Fame numbers compared to that.
17 receptions over the past 2 weeks, still dominating the high-value touches. Hopefully the high-value touches end up meaning something in this offense. They didn't really mean a whole lot in a game where you lose 38-10, but I'm trying to still stay patient with Austin Ekeler.
All right, speaking of the panic button, that's all it was for Cam Akers in week 1. But now in the last 2 weeks, guys, he's outcarried Darrell Henderson in both games. Henderson saw more goal line snaps, 3 total, than Akers. But the bottom line is Akers is kind of back in the fold here. Pat, I'm not really going to ask you how much you trust him because I think it's hard to trust anybody in this backfield. But what do you make of this split right now?
Yeah, Cam Akers week 1 panic mode, that was a different kind of panic mode. That was like you're up in the F-15 and you just hit the eject button after 10 seconds, like I'm out.
Quit the league.
I'm out. And now it's not so much panic as it is just really, really weird stuff going on this backfield where Akers has decisively outcarried Darrell Henderson each of the past 2 weeks, but it kind of remained a true 50-50 split, at least from a snaps perspective on Sunday. And Darrell Henderson was still playing most of the money downs, like 3rd and 4th down, handling touches in the red zone. And, Darrell Henderson finished only 4 total carries, yes, but in the first half, when the game was supposedly competitive, only 2 carries for Cam Akers and 2 carries for -1 yards. And it just feels like Sean McVay doesn't know what the week 4 plan is going to be. So I'm kind of not sure how we should know what the week 4 plan, because Sean McVay, he's telegraphed for a while, he's never trusted Darrell Henderson as like a bell cow type. And now he just clearly can't trust Cam Akers as a bell cow type. So I feel like even Sean McVay is just making it up as he goes along. And we just kind of have to fall back on well, I guess they're mid-range flex options and keep expectations low for both until we see some sort of pattern established in this backfield. Because right now it's basically like week-to-week chaos, and you can't detect any trends. And the usage, unless maybe Pat Kerrane can, because he seems to detect a trend in everything. So am I right or am I wrong, Pat?
No, I think you're right. I think for now, this is going to be a very uncertain backfield. We may see Akers get a little bit more work, but Henderson, I think, would keep 3rd down snaps, that type of role. It does strike me that McVay really wants Akers to be the guy. So I think at some point, we should see him get back to 70-80% of snaps at some point.
Matter of fact, now Cam Akers fumbled at the goal line, which would have been his 2nd touchdown. Now, Sean McVay did say that had the Cardinals scored quick and the Rams got the ball back in 4-minute offense, he was going to go right back to Cam Akers after that fumble and let him run out the clock. So, I'm with you, Pat. Hey, look, he's slowly but surely becoming that guy that we love him to be.
All right, fellas, on the good news front, Tom Brady had his most fantasy points of the 2022 season in Week 3. The bad news is it was under 15. Now, we know the Bucs were basically missing everybody right now, but I think the expectations for Brady are obviously falling much short. Pat, when the reinforcements arrive, are you much more optimistic about Brady?
I may be a little more optimistic than the crowd might be, and it was hard to be optimistic about Sunday's game, even with the 42 attempts, with 13 targets to Russell Gage. And that's 2019 Tom Brady. That's New England Patriots Tom Brady. But he had no choice but to be New England Patriots Tom Brady. We have an immediate reinforcement on the way, of course, and Mike Evans for Week 4 against the Chiefs. Chris Godwin was still not practicing in any form last week. He's probably on the wrong side of questionable for Week 4. He's not on injured reserve, so that means they expect him to miss fewer than 4 games. And maybe one reason why I'm remaining a little more bullish on Tom Brady and some other people might be is that the run game isn't making this like a tough decision for Tampa Bay. The Packers run defense looked soft in Week 2 against the Chicago Bears, and then it did not look soft against Leonard Fournette in Week 3. And Lenny, he's been playing through some injuries, but that's what Leonard has been doing increasingly of late. He has not been staying anywhere close to 100% healthy. And, a guy who's already not explosive in the best of times, that's hurting his explosiveness. And it's not like giving the Bucs an out. I think they're going to have to remain the Bucs once these guys get healthy. We're going to have to see increased passing game volume. And it's going to be, thankfully, to a supporting cast that is much better than the 2019 New England Patriots. So I'm not saying we're 2015, we saw physical decline from Peyton Manning. we're not seeing that from Tom Brady. It's just about the injuries in the supporting cast. And I do think that will get better. And Tom Brady will get back to something resembling like a QB8, QB9.
All right, staying on the quarterback front, closing it out with the quarterback front. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts are in a totally different tier than everybody else right now. All three of them have 85-plus fantasy points through the first 3 weeks. No other quarterback has more than 70. Pat, I'll throw to you right now. Are these guys going to kind of break brains and challenge people to take quarterbacks earlier with just how significantly they are outperforming the rest of the pack?
Yeah, they are tiering alone at the top, and thankfully we're seeing like the dual threat roaring back. After last year, the 1 through 4 QBs were Josh Allen, who is a dual threat, but then Justin Herbert, who's an elite athlete but isn't really a dual threat. Tom Brady was the QB3 last year. Patrick Mahomes, who should be a part of this tier, but I think is being limited by his supporting cast. They can't figure out what their target delineation should be. And yeah, I just think we're seeing order being restored at quarterback, where last year was a down year for the dual threat for quarterback rushing. This year is like reminding that, yeah, that was just a fluke. Lamar Jackson is still going to be a league winner. Jalen Hurts, it could talk about a league winner. Jalen Hurts is looking like the league winner so far of 2022. And Lawrence, am I correct? I mean, Lamar, I know, I hear you're a Lamar Jackson fan. Are you happy with this play so far through 3 games? Can you find anything to nitpick?
Nitpick? No, I don't want to strain myself by nitpicking. But everything's going as planned. So far, so good. And did you see that number 5 name on that board? My man 2 was just creeped in there real quick on you.
On the Ravens, the Ravens are a pass-first team. They're almost a pass-heavy team right now. So I think that is just super bullish as you look for Lamar the rest of the year.
All right, Pat, great having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to go to break, but when we are back, we are talking Monday Night Football for our last call. Some Monday Night Football props to sneak in as well right after this. The action never stops at BetMGM. Sign up now using bonus code PEACOCK, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Simply download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com and enter bonus code PEACOCK to make your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. Monday Night Football, fellas. Plenty of props on the board. Let's take a look during last call at the most bet Monday Night Football props here, thanks to our very good friends at BetMGM. Saquon Barkley to score the first touchdown, plus 600. Not the craziest odds there. Saquon Barkley to score anytime touchdown is minus money at minus 120. Saquon Barkley over 22.5 receiving yards, minus 115. Fellas, before we give our Monday Night Football player props, was there any of those 3 that you like?
All of them.
All of them. You're on the Saquon train.
It do make me a little nervous since everybody on Saquon.
Let's just start with you, Lawrence. What is your prop? I think I have a good idea where you're going with your prop there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm going to go to over on 76.5 yards rushing for Saquon. He had a tough 72 against the Panthers. They stuck with the run, so that let me know that no matter what, they're going to, because it has to be Saquon or bust on the offense, and that's why I'm going to go with the over-under there, the over.
Pat, what are you looking at tonight?
So I kind of like Richie James over 2.5 receptions. Kadarius Toney doubtful for this game. He was playing a little bit more Toney last week, and he was getting work in the slot. That's where Richie James operates. Richie James has a shallow average depth of target below 10. That's going to lead to a little bit more in terms of target volume, a little bit more in terms of reception volume. 2.5 is 2 below where Sterling Shepard's line is. I think that's pretty good value.
Yeah, so you believe, I mean, not that he's going to be fed a high amount of targets, but Richie James is kind of here to stay.
Yeah, he in there.
A league, lifelong special teams guy is now factoring in as a legitimate wide receiver in some kind of sense for Brian Daboll.
Yeah, for as long as Toney's not playing, he's going to be out there.
Yeah, and with Kadarius Toney, we know it's a different injury by the hour at this point. I'm going to close mine out here, fellas, and I'm curious what you think. Tony Pollard, over 2.5 receptions. Pollard caught 4 passes last week. Here's the deal. I think Cooper Rush is going to lean on throwing to his running backs, and when Tony Pollard is on the field, he's going to run a decent amount of routes.
Yeah, I think you could take that same bet on Ezekiel Elliott, too. I like it for both running backs for the reason you just said.
This is a rational coaching play. Pollard has been really good this year. He should be over this.
All right, final predictions for the game tonight, fellas. Last I saw was the Cowboys were favored, I believe, by 2.5. The line was pretty close. We'll just go money line. You going with Brian Daboll's 2-0 New York Giants or the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys?
Give me the Giants. Let's have the Giants stay
Giants.
undefeated. Let's go.
I'll take the Cowboys. Give me the pass rush.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dallas as well. I think it's going to be a really, really close game, and it's just something wild to think about the Giants starting 3-0 no matter what. That is it for Last Calls. Matthew Berry says you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We will catch you tomorrow, 12 Eastern Time on Peacock.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.